Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and today we are here, by we I mean the whole editorial team who will introduce themselves in a second. We're here to talk about the spring budget that happened earlier this week. So before we get started, if everyone could introduce themselves.
Michael, acting editor.
I'm Lois, chief reporter.
Amanda, feature writer.
Hi, I'm Mamadou. I'm a senior reporter.
Hi, I'm Darius. I'm the latest investment reporter for Money Marketing.
Great. Okay, so I guess this budget was kind of anticipated, but no one really knew what might come up in it. But are there any announcements or anything that Jeremy Hunt said in his first spring budget that stood out for any of you guys in particular?
No, absolutely nothing.
No. It was, for me, I tweeted, "Oh my God," in capital letters when he announced that he'd abolished the lifetime annual allowance.
That was a big,
the lifetime allowance, not the lifetime annual allowance, the lifetime allowance, and he'd increased the annual allowance because I wasn't expecting that. There were rumours of that, but that lifetime allowance, just abolishing it was. There were rumours that he'd increase it from just over $1 million because it's been going down and down for years, but then he just abolished it, which is really interesting. And that's the biggest thing that's happened for my time in, looking at covering pensions. Yeah.
And for someone who doesn't have as much of pensions understanding or a pensions background like you do, Mike, I don't have that. Can you explain why this is such a big deal?
One, because I think no one was expecting it. Two, just because there's just a bit of a debate about pensions, how much they are a vehicle for people who have high income. Basically, I guess you could use the word the rich. We say high net wealth, but the rich. And for many, many years, the government's been looking to, since the financial crisis, it's been looking to raise revenue, and they've cut pretty much everything apart from kind of the 40 to 45 billion, which is spent every year by the Treasury on pensions tax relief. And a large chunk of that goes to higher sort of income earners, and maybe people who tend to be older and vote, and so on and so forth. And I think for a long time, there's been, since the financial crisis, increased concern about inequality and the haves and have-nots, or the haves and have-yachts, as Peter Mandelson famously said.
I like that.
And which I think is a pretty good phrase, like that, very clever phrase and quite a good one. Wish I invented it myself. But then it's sort of flipped a little bit, because a lot of it seems that a lot of doctors and highly paid doctors and consultants are being hit by high pensions tax charges.
Right.
And so, since we had COVID, the government has said, clap for the NHS, or we've also clapped for the NHS, and there's been meant to be more sort of friendliness towards, I guess, public sector workers, or gratefulness for key workers. And so the government would argue that they've, abolished the lifetime allowance to make more doctors and highly paid consultants work. And then it's not just helping the rich, but other people may have a different point of view. So I don't know. That's a long answer, but that's why it's kind of so politically charged, I think.
Yeah. I think it gave me a bit of clarity. Is there anything anyone else wanted to add there?
It's interesting. I thought that the day after the budget, Labour came out and said that they would bring back the lifetime allowance if they were in power. So it's kind of, and I think it was Andrew Tully said or warned against the dangers of playing political ping pong with pensions, because pensions are quite they're a long-term thing. Obviously, they're long-term savings for people. So if there's no stability there, people don't know, like, they're not going to be sort of motivated to save into a pension, because it's just going to be constantly changing. So I personally really hate the politicization of anything, but in this case, because we're talking about it, pensions, I think it's really bad. I think there needs to be some sort of stability there, because otherwise governments are just going to come in, change it all up, completely change each time, and it's just dangerous, I think.
Is it? And you were saying something about a campaign you were hoping to start or something?
Yeah, although Mike knows a lot more about pensions than me, and I think he said that might be a bit difficult. But I saw a conversation on LinkedIn between some advisors saying that basically it shouldn't be so political, and I agree. I really don't like politicization. Just even watching the budget yesterday, or not yesterday when this comes out, but just even watching the budget, it's just really annoying. It's just like I said it in the group. I think it's like a farce, but it's not. It's so depressing.
Yeah. I think with all the cheering and the booing as well, it made it seem a little comical when it's really not.
Some people find it entertaining, but I find it very, very annoying.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're probably in one of those camps.
Now, there was a couple of times when Jeremy Hunt couldn't even finish his sentence because there was either too much cheering or booing going on. And it's during a budget, it's during an important announcement. It's not like something that might impact a lot of people. So yeah, I would agree in that sense. You do find it a bit ridiculous.
I do always find it funny whenever like people who aren't British watch like PMQs or something like that, and they're like, "This is your parliament." Like when they're
this
like,
"This isn't a sitcom, are you sure?"
Yeah.
I know.
They're like, "No, this is a British sitcom, right?" No, that's just how they act when they're having a meeting on a Wednesday afternoon. But anyway, so was there anything else that stood out that you wrote about Momadou?
No, well, I mean, just to add on what Mike and
Lois were saying,
we said, because I did cover, I mean, the LTA and the MP and the AA, So I think the LTA, that was something. I mean, that was never seen coming, I mean, people thought, as Mike, said, earlier, people thought that, the chancellor would just increase the amount of abolish it. I think that was kind of shocking. But then with this forum, we've discussed, doctors, kind of like why doctors, taking pay cuts, So I think the announcement yesterday kind of like addressed that issue, So if there's any good news, I think that's for doctors. Doctors came out very well yesterday in terms of this LTA.
So would that potentially put a halt to the upcoming strike from like senior doctors?
Oh yes, yeah, I think most definitely. I think most definitely.
That's one less strike they have to worry about, I guess. But I did see, I'm not sure who wrote about this, but that there wasn't much mention on public sector pay in the budget at all.
Yeah, no, yeah, that was me, Kim, and no, there wasn't, and enough people tweet out they're sort of surprised that it wasn't really touched upon, and so obviously because of the same day the budget was announced, you had strikes from teachers, junior doctors, and
tube strikes as well.
So as Jeremy Hunt's actually talking about this, you've actually got strikes actually occurring, but no, there was no mention of them in the budget.
I would say, like, why do you think that is? But honestly, like, you probably can't even ask that, because only Jeremy Hunt and his advisors probably know what they're planning, I guess.
Who knows?
Who knows these days? I think also on the other side of it, obviously our sister brand Mortgage Strategy covers everything to do with mortgage and housing. And I noticed it was rather quiet on that side because there was nothing mentioned on the mortgage sector at all as well. So it seems like he was intentionally choosing certain areas where he may be thinking he might get some wins.
I liked how he started with pubs. Well, that was very early on anyway.
Didn't like Rishi last time start off with like beer? like cutting the tax of beer or something like that, like locally made ales and stuff. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, maybe they have a strategy. But we did have a joke in our work teams group chat where one of our colleagues who isn't here, Maria, was talking about if he announces something to do with childcare, she'll bring us all donuts. So I guess we are going to get our donuts because he announced 4 billion expansion pack. Look at me talking like I'm talking about Sims. I'm sorry. Of free childcare. So I guess that's one benefit for working parents.
It is good. But he's doing it in a phased approach, and it won't affect, I don't think it'll affect parents who actually have 1 and 2-year-olds now.
Right. Yes. I heard, I was listening to something on the news last night, and basically if you have, there was like a woman who was talking about her 2-year-old who will turn 3 next year in April, which is when I think it will officially start. So she would potentially only have a month for her. I think her child's 3 actually and turning 4. So when her child turns 4, she would no longer be able to get that, which kind of sucks.
Although I think the idea, I think it's already in effect for 3 and 4-year-olds, and he's extended it to so that it's from anyone who has a child under 5 years.
Okay.
Between 9 months and 5 years.
Okay.
So she should still get 30 hours free childcare, I think. But just the phased approach seems a very long phased approach. I think April he's introducing 15 hours for 9 months to 2 years. And then it's going up to 30 hours in September. And then the year after, it's going up to 2 and 3-year-olds.
Okay. Wow. I guess
it's still good. It's still good, but it could be better.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that was quite interesting or funny was when he was talking about the canary wolf. He was like, we need more canary wolves in this country. And I think I saw a tweet from, I can't remember who it was, but he's quite a notable advisor. And he said, we need more canary wolves, said no one ever. But the proposed plan is to have more investment zones within the UK, maybe in Liverpool, Manchester.
12 investment zones.
Yeah.
And he talked about the London docks and Canary Wharf as like being an example of like kind of regeneration back in the 80s or 90s when it was done. But if you can do that again, that'd be a good thing.
Will that potentially help or boost the sector? Like,
well, you'd hope so, but I guess it all depends if it happens or not, because there are a lot of promises. But it's whether the government and I guess the kind of local business and kind of community organisations, that's how he pitched it, can pull it off. So yeah, I mean I don't know. It's like a long-term thing. It's like
it will be a long-term project, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that one we'll have to wait to see. But I guess there was also quite a lot of investments into small businesses and more research on more investment for small tech firms and science-based firms, which I think is great, especially if they need that investment to be able to develop products or what treatments that will ultimately benefit all of us. So hopefully that's a good one. And also there was one about AI as well, which was called the Manchester Baby or something like that.
Yeah, there's a new prize, a new £1 million prize, where if you can do something good with AI, you can get £1 million. So I
still don't think we shouldn't really encourage too much AI. It's just me.
I'm just kicking myself for not getting that computer science degree. Yeah, but was there anything else that stood out for you guys?
Can I talk about the money purchase annual allowance? Sorry to bring it back to pensions, but the reason I'm doing this is because I actually wrote about it in the March issue.
Of course.
For anyone that needs reminding or doesn't know about it, this allowance came into being after pensions freedoms were introduced. The government at the time was worried that people were withdrawing income from pensions and then sticking it back in again to get 2 bites of the tax relief cherry. So that was a bit of a no-no. So they said, let's limit what you can put in again. So that was limited to £10,000 a year. But then it was cut in 2017 to the 4,000 that we've seen recently. And that's caused all the problems, because once I think Jeremy Hunt started speaking about getting older workers back into the workforce, that caused the problem, because, all these people retiring because of the pandemic, they started seeing with the cost of living crisis, they couldn't survive on a pension, and returning back to the workplace, that potentially is an issue. So once he started bringing that to the fore, then I think the government really had to kind of address this. But I would have liked to have seen it scrapped, to be honest, because I've always thought it was really petty. But it's fallen short of that. I suppose I can't complain too much, because we have had the lifetime allowance scrapped and the annual allowance increased. So I suppose it's not much of a bugbear. But it did really annoy me, because I would like to see it go anyway, because when I first started learning about what it was, it made my head spin, just all this complication. I think just get rid of it. We don't really need it. There are other ways of stopping people abusing the rules. Let's look at those.
Yeah. I mean, maybe potentially he's thinking he'll test out with lifetime allowance, and then potentially maybe next year's budget we might be having that conversation where he scrapped it too.
Well, I hope so.
But it's an interesting point that Amanda makes, because he's got rid of the biggest one, and he's kept the smallest one. So it's just sort of, I don't know what the thinking is or how that works.
I don't know. I'm thinking testing the waters instead of just doing it all in one foul swoop. Maybe he's like, this, it would be more risky to do it all together. So, well, I guess we'll see what awaits us in the mini statement, I guess, in October.
Autumn statement, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got confused last year because we had the mini budget in September. And then it was a real budget, and then we had the autumn statement.
Yeah. Which was pushed back to November, like early November, I think, in the end. But yeah, I think obviously we've had towards the end of 2022 is quite tumultuous. But now we're in more regular scheduling, I guess. So hopefully we'll be able to see. No more Boris. So regular schedule. So we'll be able to see what happens. I guess they're also gearing up for an election. So we'll see what outcomes they have. But was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we wrap this up?
Just that the Office for Budget Responsibility has confirmed there won't be a recession in the UK this year. But I noticed that they also said that that people's lifestyles are going to be the worst since records began.
Because inflation is still crazy.
Inflation's still, and even though inflation, it's predicted to go down to 2.9% by the end of 2023, but lots of people are quite skeptical about that actually happening.
Really?
Yeah.
And that is why Nick Clegg had said he wanted a hard recession, because he said that although we would be in a recession, it would mean that inflation would be around for a shorter amount of time. Whereas right now, because of the payouts and everything, we're going to have inflation for a longer period of time. And we're going to find that even though our pays are rising, they aren't really meeting our requirements for what we need to do to live and exist without even the fun stuff of living and existing, just the bare essentials, basically.
on that, I do think it was good that the government came out and did confirm or say that they will extend the energy support until the summer for energy prices. I do think that was good.
Who knew Martin Lewis would save us all?
Yeah.
He got a name check and everything in the budget. That's amazing. So this is why I said we need more finfluencers, because clearly their influence holds some weight even with the government. So yeah, that's quite an interesting thing, and hopefully more good can come from people like that. But I think that's where I'm going to wrap us up today, guys. Thank you so much for speaking with me and letting me know what happened in the budget.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.